Hi all, it's that time of week again. It's the Truth, Honour and Integrity show, and tonight is February the 2nd. Hi all. Right, there'll be a reason for playing that song. I will be covering that after this next song. Seem to have done far too many of these, but gets no easier. This week, for those of us that are in THI, who are also part of Cosmic Voice, will remember a guy named Pat Johnson. Now, Pat was part of the inner circle behind Cosmic Voice, along with Drake, myself, Chloe, Tanath, Sunfire, Andrew Simmons, Wolfie, and his closest person in that group to him, Grammy J. Now, Grammy J is many things to many people, as we all know, but she was especially fond of Pat Johnson. Sadly, Pat could no longer wait 2 more weeks or stay in the Way Club, and sadly died this week and has left us all behind. Well, Pat brought a lot of humour to the page. You know, some people didn't agree with him, but then people are free to disagree all the time. He was a bit near the knuckle with his humour, which I appreciated, as I kind of pushed the boundaries at times. And I was pleased. I knew the man. Like I said, we didn't always agree. Pat used to get a bit anxious about the 2 weeks, like many of us. Well, no more 2 weeks, eh, Pat? So we wish Pat well on his journey and send deepest sympathies to his family, his friends, of which he had many, and especially to Grammy J at this sad time. His song's for Pat Johnson. That was going out to Pat Johnson, a very treasured member of Cosmic Voice and a friend to many, who brought laughter to many. And laughter is probably the best medicine for all. You know, we all are suffering in various ways. It just seems to be an avalanche of it. It was warned on this show, but rest assured, we will all come through it stronger. Of that I have no doubt. Now, I played the song initially, Everything Is Not What It Seems, and it's not. I will be showing evidence of that later in the hour. But first we'll get to some news which will also cover certain aspects of Everything Is Not As It Seems. Right, on last Thursday, Mr. Trump doubled down on a presidential memo that he had signed, which instructs the Secretary of Commerce to develop a plan that would require any company that builds a pipeline within the US borders to use American-made materials only. So that is a change for our business. That has not been going on before. It's been outsourced to cabal-operated corporations offshore and shipped back in at great cost to us and a lot of jobs. Now the issue is which pipeline. I'll have more on that particular pipeline later. You may like it better this week. Mr. Trump again. Mr. Trump's been rather busy. The new he put a 4-month hold on allowing refugees into the United States and has temporarily barred travellers from Syria and 6 other Muslim majority countries. He said the move would be to protect Americans from terrorism. In a swift and stern delivery on a campaign promise, the bans affect travellers with passports from Iraq, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria and Yemen. All the countries that we've been bombing, bar one, but there you go. The action itself has prompted fury across the world, but particularly from Arab travellers in the Middle East and North Africa, who said it was humiliating and discriminatory. It drew widespread criticism from some of the US Western allies, including France and Germany, Arab American groups and human rights organisations all over the world. Iran in particular condemned the order as an open affront against the Muslim world and the Iranian nation, and has vowed to retaliate. One hopes they won't, but there you go. Of the 7 countries targeted, Iran sends the most visitors to the United States each year, which is around 35,000 as of last year. Where are we? And that's according to Department of Homeland Security records. Some legal experts have said that they are going to carve out show the order was unconstitutional, as it would violate the US right to freedom of religion. But others said the President and the US Congress have latitude to choose who receives asylum. So people coming into America are entering the asylum. There's that play on words again, suggesting them are all idiots. Now the people who enforce the rules are actually in the asylum. Iran has moved swiftly and is now going to drop the US dollar in response to the ban, which will come into effect on March the 17th. The White House on Monday warned the State Department officials that they should leave their jobs if they did not agree with President Trump's agenda. And this was in response to an effort to stamp out a wave of internal dissent against Mr. Trump's temporary ban on entry visas from people predominantly from 7 Muslim countries. Career officials at the State Department are also circulating a dissent cable which says that Mr. Trump's executive order closing the nation's doors to more than 200 million people to weed out a handful would-be terrorists would not make the nation safer and might instead deepen that threat. I'll have some more news on that item, or more of the background intel for that later in the hour. We'll just go through all the news first and then we'll get into the intel of it. There's quite a bit this week. Now, we covered this incident, or one of them, last week. Yet again, Mr. Nutty Asshole, or Netanyahu, has decided to continue with the fun and games that he's playing on his own people. Well, I think I'm doing a disservice to the people of Israel having him as their boss, so to speak. But he's still there until somebody has the balls to get up and remove that clan from society altogether. And this week there's been scuffles between Israeli protesters and the police seeking to evacuate an unauthorised settlement outpost in the occupied West Bank. Israel's Supreme Court has ruled that Amona must be demolished because it is built on private Palestinian land. So yet again we're seeing, I'm going to butt in a bit here, you're seeing evidence of certain courts or certain sections of government going against the main protagonist, shall we say. It's evidence of change. You know, we are having it here where certain departments are doing things different. And the fact that Israel's Supreme Court has ruled it to be demolished suggests there is change afoot over there. Time will tell. Anyway, hundreds of activists threw stones at and resisted police officers as they moved in to enforce the court order. Hours earlier, the Israeli government approved plans to build 3,000 new homes at settlements in the West Bank. This is Mr. Netanyahu again. This is now the third such announcement since the inauguration 12 days ago of Mr. Trump, who himself has hinted he will be more sympathetic to settlement construction than his predecessor. A Palestinian official, Mr. Ashrawi, condemned the latest approval and warned that chances for peace were being destroyed. More than 600,000 Jews live in about 140 settlements built since Israel's 1967 illegal occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Settlements are considered illegal under international law, although Israel disputes this. There are more than 95 outpost settlements built without official authorization from the Israeli government across the West Bank. This is not reflecting good on us, that we're supporting this sort of behaviour and condoning it. I would rather hope in the future that Mr. Trump changes policy on that and acts accordingly. You know, it's fairly simple to me. You know, everything is simple when you analyse it from an over point of view in a balanced way. You push them, Israel, back to the 1967 borders, which is what they were allocated, and instead of installing walls, that wall is 152 miles long now, I might add. I don't know, miles or kilometres, I'm not too sure. I think I'll cover that later in this hour. Put a so-called UN force in between the two sets of people. Anyone firing rockets, arrested immediately. Anyone intruding on Palestinian land is arrested immediately. End of war. It's just that simple. But of course we've got people here in this country who have no intentions of creating peace in the Middle East, like the 7 peoples mentioned earlier. America, apart from Iran, has attacked every one of those countries. Where do you expect them to go? Imagine if Syria decided to bomb Philadelphia, New York, etc., etc., Washington, Maryland, that whole northeast, and the rest of Ohio and West Virginia and North and South Carolina says, you're not coming to live here. It's the same thing. Just because they've got a different religion doesn't mean they're the enemy. It's that divide and conquer stupidity again that too many of us fall for. That's their game. It's not ours. It's not us that's bombing Syria and Iraq and Yemen. It's not the people. So why should we fall for their rhetoric that they're a threat to this country or the UK? Because clearly they're not. All the false flags designed to blame them on Muslims have all failed. People have seen through it. It's an illusion. Like the whole of the Muslim world is coming to get us. like the whole of Russia was coming to get us previously, and now partially China's coming to get us. They're not. False boogeymen again. So I would like to see Mr. Trump, because I know he has support from the Israeli group, show some balls and find a proper lasting solution for both peoples there, as the Israeli peoples are suffering as well, as there's clowns firing rockets, incidentally supplied by this country. Mr. Stevens found that out in Benghazi, and yet still we wait for justice to be served for that incident. Maybe the swamp needs to be drained before it's cleaned. Joseph Smith, who was a Pentagon Inspector General under Donald Rumsfeld, not heard from him for a while. Wonder if he took the Kool-Aid. And he didn't, during his time, Mr. Smith didn't actually spend much of his time inspecting much of anything. He was more of a cheerleader type for the many of the most kind of excessive policies of Rumsfeld and the Pentagon in the post 9/11 world. Mr. Smith then left the DoD and became an executive at Blackwater. We've heard that a lot recently, haven't we? Joseph Smith, as you know, is a radical Christian supremacist, and he's also a member of the Sovereign Order of the Knights of Malta, and has a neo-crusader worldview. I'm going to choose my words rather carefully here. But he is an enthusiastic fan of Eric Prince and Blackwater, and goes and joins that company. He wrote a lot of letters to conservative newspapers, including the Washington Times in the 90s, and was a fanatical opponent of abortion. So Mr. Smith is now being assembled in the team. So that's the background on who he is. Of course, last week we covered Betsy DeVos, who is the sister of the Blackwater Foundation founder Eric Prince. Where are we next? Mr. Trump again, at last Saturday, acted to fulfill a key portion of his pledge to drain the swamp in Washington, banning administration officials from ever lobbying the US on behalf of a foreign government and imposing a separate 5-year ban on other lobbying. Good move. Administration officials described the bans as historic in its scope, but it was not immediately clear how either one would be enforced. Trump has said individuals who want to aid him in his quest to make America great again should focus on the jobs they will be doing to help the American people, and not thinking about the future income they could rake in by peddling their influence after serving in government. Hear, hear, says me. Good move. And that's another part of the change. Yeah, let's cover this. The act of crass stupidity and red tapes that surrounds us all. But sometimes there's a special kind of stupidity. And here's one particular story. An Amish farmer, Samuel Giro, has been facing a 12-count federal indictment since October of 2015. The charges against him include conspiracy, distributing misbranded drugs, and threatening a witness. Mr. Giro's trouble started back in 2013 when someone reported his products to the state health department in Missouri. One product at the centre of a lengthy indictment is Giro's chickweed salve. Its ingredients include rosemary, beeswax and olive oil. Throughout the accusations, the FDA often took up an issue with the labelling of the products. It said chickweed salve up top, and then on down it says cures cancer, for which some people it did, but he can't say that, so he had to change it to healing chickweed. But they said no, you can't say healing, so now it just says original chickweed. Mr. Moody went on and said, I mean, do you go to jail because you've messed up a label on a product? I doubt he knew any better. The FDA says Giroux also passed out pamphlets touting his product's effectiveness in treating various conditions. It is because of those claims that under the Federal Drug, Food and Cosmetic Act, the FDA says the products are defined as a drug, even though multiple tests confirm the products contain no drugs. The FDA requires anyone who manufactures a defined drug to register their facility with them. It just beggars belief that we tolerate this type of crap. You know, the FDA is about as useful as the WHO, World Health Organization, in deciding which product is right and which is not. Their mistakes are vast. In fact, I would hesitate to say they are not mistakes but deliberate policy. They obviously don't want people curing anything. It's time we stopped buying their drugs and start buying the likes of this guy's and the many others out there. Look for alternatives. Don't just out of habit go to Walgreens or CVS or whatever other pharmacy there is. Go and find some natural holistic medicine and cut them off at the source. You already know, I've said it numerous times on this show, out of their own mouth they said 90% of drugs don't work on 60% of the people, and yet we still buy them at great cost, I might add, compared to some other countries. What was it, e-piping we covered a couple of months ago? You know, about 20% of the cost here in other countries, and yet we're banned from purchasing them. No, not the way it should be, and not the way it should go either. Deutsche Bank. Oh, don't you love Deutsche Bank? Yet again this week they've been fined, this time $630 million by US and UK regulators in connection with a Russian money laundering plan. So mortgage fraud, mortgage security fraud, LIBOR fraud, and now money laundering, and yet this particular bank still continues to exist. You and I would have been serving 4 or 5 life terms. They just seem to carry on. Bear in mind that they were fined $14 billion by the US regulators last year, which have been led to believe has been reduced to 7 after the Deutsche Bank threatened the US State Department and says, if you enforce that particular fine, we're going to crash all your banks. I'm waiting for the State Department to throw Deutsche Bank and all their assets, take them off them. Then I might be able to save my house. Why do we need them in our country? We've got enough of our own banks without needing rogue criminals like that. Might be a good start for Trump to deal with the banking crisis. Get rid of the Deutsche Bank and confiscate all their assets and give it back to the people they stole it off. Anyway, back to the money laundering. Under the scheme, clients illegally moved 10 billion out of Russia via shares and bought and sold through the bank's Moscow, London and New York offices. Authorities said Dusha had missed numerous opportunities to detect, investigate and stop the scheme. They have no intentions of. Dusha Bank said it was cooperating with regulators, and it also said it had put money aside to cover the cost of the settlement. Yes, that's our money again. As you know, it's only our money that's in the accounts. Banks don't have money, they only have ours. During this particular investigation, New York authorities and Britain's Financial Conduct Authority found that so-called mirror trades, well, we've heard about that on this show before, mirror banking and all that fun and games, had been carried out throughout the bank between 2011 and 2015. They didn't go back too far, did they? I think if they carried on another 10 years, they'll find exactly the same fun and games. Anyway, clients would purchase stocks in rubles in Moscow before their counterparts sold the same stock at the same price through the bank's London branch. Mr. Trump, deal with Dusha Bank, will you, and those Nazi clowns. Another good move, or so it appears. Mr. Trump has signed an executive order designed to cut the number of regulations affecting US businesses this week. He said he wanted to tell small business owners that the American dream is back, and that he would create an environment for small businesses by ending or limiting existing regulations. Well, I'm all for cutting red tape. It's stifling this country, well, stifling the whole Western world, to be quite honest. President went on to say that a large proportion of the American workforce was employed by these firms. Therefore, we want to make life easier for these small business owners. However, despite the President's emphasis on small businesses, the wording of the order does not mention them specifically, so the order will affect businesses of all sizes. Time will tell. Mr. Trump, again, fired the federal government's top lawyer this week, a person by the name of Sally Yates, on Monday after she took the extraordinary rare step of defying the White House and saying the Justice Department would not defend his new travel restrictions targeting 7 Muslim-majority nations. The White House said on Twitter that Dana Boente, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, would replace Yates, and is an appointee of former Democratic President Barack Obama as acting US Attorney General. So the firing goes on. Mr. Netanyahu again was forced to apologise over the weekend for what he called a misunderstanding. He seems to spend most of his life misunderstanding Mr. Nutty arsehole. After tweeting what a great idea it is to build a wall blocking Mexicans in. Understandably, the Mexican president's not too happy over his comments, and words were exchanged. Mr. Netanyahu apologised. It's not. I don't think the apology is good enough, to be quite honest. I think it's time the Israeli people removed that clown, because he's an embarrassment to everybody. Now, I mentioned earlier about the wall, and this will come as a surprise to many, thinking it's only a small portion of Israel. But that wall has been continuously built for the last 3 years. In 2013, and it's gone on since, Israel completed 152 miles of wall going from Rafah to Eilat along its border with Egypt. What's the odds it goes further into Syria and then towards Turkey until it's stopped and demolished? Beware the caliphate. Saudi Arabia, of course they're firing at Yemen at the moment, in war with Yemen. Saudi Arabia, part of the Bush group, as we know, but they're struggling financially, lo and behold. I wonder why. Anyway, it's decided to introduce a value added tax, VAT, sales tax as we would call it here in America, with the approval of the IMF, indicating the end of life without VAT across the Gulf. The decision was taken on Monday and implies a 5% levy on some goods across the 6-member Gulf Cooperation Council, which unites Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Other Gulf countries are also expected to follow and introduce the VAT system by the beginning of 2018. The reason for all this is a response to the downturn in oil prices. Saudis also announced that they are scrapping a number of projects totaling $266 billion. Ooh, they're struggling financially. That means they can't supply funds to the Bushes. Think about it. MPs in the UK have voted by a majority of 384 to allow Prime Minister Theresa May to get Brexit negotiations underway. And of course, people remember, was it back in May when the people voted for Britain to leave the EU, and still it goes on. 9 months nearly now, and they're still playing votes and adding stuff up and taking stuff away and kicking it can down the road. Funny when they want something or want to enforce something on the people, it's within a week or 2 weeks, like extra taxes, and yet anything that's going to be seen as beneficial to the people, it gets kicked down the road, and all kinds of bills and all kinds of votes have to take place. Anyway, they backed the government's European Union bill, supported by the Labour leadership, by 498 votes to 114, which finally paves the way for the UK exit from the EU. Watch for some other stalling tactic to come into play, we'll see. One person was killed and another hurt during a US Air Force live fire training accident involving F-16 fighter planes in New Mexico, authorities said yesterday. The mishap, in massive inverted commas, took place around 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday at a White Sands, we're all familiar with that particular region, missile range training ground, Holloman Air Force Base said in a statement. The incident involved a ground control party and 2 F-16 Fighting Falcons that fired air-to-surface ordnance during training. And if you believe that, you can believe anything. That region is riddled with underground bases. Of course, White Sands has many names. Area 51, Groom Lake, amongst others. S4. It's my understanding that particular area that had tall greys and others was cleared out in April, May of 2013. What most people will not be aware of is they have tunnels, a massive amount of tunnels with maglev trains running out of them. One particular line went from Dulce, that whole region of Dulce, It's not just Dulce either. There's a particular ground that is barred from the public walking on the Ute land, Native American land. Anyway, the line that went from Dulce, that whole region, went out to Catalina Island. That particular tunnel was rendered obsolete, and so they fled north, the ones underground at S4. A lot of them fled to Dugway, which is in Utah, and still reside there amongst other bases in that whole area. Sedona is another one. It's not all love and light in Sedona. Trust me, it's not. Much more dark than light. But rest assured, they're being routed out currently. Well, here's something for us who live in America. You won't have to worry this summer about running out of gas, or petrol as they call it in Europe, for those who are listening in Europe. It just boggles my mind. There's another example of stupid business practices, but here we go. He said gasoline stockpiles are just 1.6 million barrels below the record high of stock that was obtained last February. And now what's happened now is the public are not using anywhere near the level of gasoline. Despite them lowering the price, the demand is down 5.7% from the same period last year. So they've got excess stock and the demand is down. Mr. Lippo then said, you'll have to listen to this carefully, the higher inventories could help keep a lid on gasoline price gains. He said the national average of $2.27 per gallon could go up about 15% over the next 8 weeks, but it's less than it might have been with less supply. So they're struggling to sell it, their stocks are increasing, which increase costs, and they're telling you the price goes up. Oh, you just love the way they operate in business. It beggars belief. It really does. The stupidity of it. Here's another item of stupidity, and given the country, item of fascism. A Berlin woman has been told this week she faces 6 months in jail and or a $250,000 fine if she smokes on the balcony of her own apartment after 8 p.m. at night. However, the District Court of Lichtenberg said they didn't buy into the woman's reasoning that she had medical issues and anxiety issues, and has ruled she may no longer smoke on her own balcony between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. Should she violate the ruling, she would face incredibly severe punishment of a $250,000 fine. You can't smoke in your own apartment. I know there's people who don't like smoking, but you're not the one that's paying for the mortgage. What people do in their own house should be allowed to stay in their own house, in my opinion. Right, we're going to go into some intel. So pin your ears back and listen closely to this, because this is some fun. Some of it is rather unpleasant, and we'll give warning. A bit hard to stomach, but it is what it is. So last week and earlier tonight I mentioned concerns surrounding Eric Prince and Blackwater. Well, Mr. Prince is working very closely alongside President Trump at the moment. He's the voice in his ear, which caused a lot of concern by myself. I've managed to obtain further information on that may make the information I said last week look in a slightly better light. Now, from all accounts, I mentioned, for those of you who have long memories, about the mercenaries not getting paid. Well, they were paid in dinars, which is a bogus currency, and they were promised they were going to get multi-millionaires on the currency they were given once the RV was completed, which was never going to happen. So Mr. Prince has been screwed over big time by all the factions. This has not made him a very happy bunny, it appears. Highly ironic that he's been screwed over, but perhaps now that may work in our favour. So, as I said earlier, he's now in close connections with Mr. Trump, and we may see what this show has stated many times, that cabal are switching sides. Maybe he may go after certain ones we'd like to be removed. Time will tell. Next news item. There is this week elements of the rogue Chinese elders have been taken out permanently. Who and by whom at this point is guarded for now. But what I was allowed to let you know is that some of the global swamp cleanup has now been escalated. Maybe one day we might see something more public, and but it has started. It's been going on for a number of months, but it's now escalated, and some of the rogue Chinese elders have been taken out. Now, the wall. Some might not like this next portion, but this is kind of what we're dealing with and have been for a very long period of time. For those of you who think that Obama's the problem, or Trump's the problem, or even Hillary, though she's bad enough, but the immigrants that have been coming into America and Europe is being done for a reason. Mass transit, kids getting cut off from their parents, families being split up. As the chaos ensues, certain individuals undertake a task to round those people up and are processing those people for organ harvesting. And if you think that's bad, the next part will turn your stomach. Also, some are being sold off for food for the Draco. that grinds my gears, as you well know. So, the reason for the wall is a blocking of that particular exercise. Not only that, is Mr. Obama was allowing ISIS elements to flood across that particular border and infiltrate America. That is now being confirmed 100%. That has been halted, and the ones who were threatening are, I would say, or will be rendered obsolete. But this is part of the ongoing thing with the immigrants. Yes, it clears and disrupts the family. It's a multi-pronged program. Cause chaos, creates fear, creates loosh. Cause chaos, disrupt families, divide and conquer. Cause chaos, send people scurrying. Come here, we'll help you. Oops, drugged, and by go the organs. That's the lucky ones. The day the final Draco leaves this planet can't come quick enough. The day the humans supporting those clowns, the day that they're removed from existence, also can't come quick enough. The idea that somebody would sell somebody for food, it's kind of beyond my comprehension. I think it's beyond most. Maybe these people are the synthetics. You have to look at it that way, because I can't understand how a living soul would operate with that sort of cold-hearted, murderous outlook. The Bushes, Clintons, Reagans, Johnsons, Nixon, all worked for the Draco. And you wonder why this country's a mess. So the wall is what happens if we can't end that carnage. Rothschilds. How I'd like to end their carnage also. Maybe that day will arrive sooner than you think. Rothschilds this week have now lost total control over the UK altogether. They will not be allowed back in. Of course, last week we mentioned they lost control of the whole of Africa after the group connected to this show totally blocked them off. We also were involved in the UK, and also the Rothschilds have lost control of Russia permanently. Now they've declared to all who will listen that they own and control China and its military, and the Rothschilds think they can take over their assets in China and use the military to take over all the rest of the Asian countries. That's what they think. I have a feeling the Chinese government and certain underground elements may have an issue with that. One hopes they act swiftly, but we await to see their subsequent response at this point. If China follows suit and chucks them out, that will rubber stamp a final end to any chances of World War III ever taking place. Personally, I don't think there's a chance anyway, because of my precog, but there's always nice to have further assurances. As I understand, there is a large element within the Chinese government who have no time for Rothschilds or Asian factions or their bogus elders or the bogus dragon groups. I hope they sort it out. Rothschilds are continuing in their attempts to take over the world. They're now trying to build an alternative shipping canal in Central America, which is potentially worth trillions, and in doing so bypassing the Panama Canal. Of course, there's always been lots of issues of the who and what controls the Panama Canal. So the wall would be a threat to that particular attempt by the Rothschilds also. For those who don't know, the Panama Canal is currently owned by the Chinese. Maybe the Chinese might like the Rothschilds becoming a rival and act quick. Do us all a favour. Now, the Mexican Wall I mentioned last week, and it creates a lot of angst and division over whether it should or should not be built. I made my position quite clear last week, and the reason being is the situation created in most of Central and Southern American countries emanates from inside this country itself, via the rogue elements operating out of Langley. It is they who created the drug issue in those countries, they who created the poor conditions in those countries, they who created the gun problem. Eric Holder, anyone? And they who created the conditions for the natives of those countries to flee drugs, guns, carnage and poor economies, all deliberately created by Langley. All of it. Of course, Langley installed many of the puppets into those particular countries' governments. So, when people are criticising far-flung countries, you always have to remember who caused the issue to begin with. Who created Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL? You all know the answers by now. So instead of blaming people around the world, we really need to stop and look at the elephant in the room. So I'm begging all listeners to this show not to denigrate or class Mexicans or other South Americans or any other country for that matter as some kind of second-class peoples. This is not or should not be what we are about, particularly when the real issue and the massive elephant in the room is within our own soil. We can't keep looking afar when the answer is right here. The issues, all the issues in South America and Central America are to do with here. All the issues in the Middle East are to do with here, or one particular group. And as Americans, we have to learn to stop playing their game and blaming the false boogeyman that's so often created here by the same agency. Politicians and media types. It's always somebody else's fault. The Russians, Chinese, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, Muslim Brotherhood, and it goes on and on and on. And as I said before, most of you are now aware that half of those groups I've just mentioned were created and funded by the same Langley group. So why do we carry on blaming Mexicans or Muslims for all our ills? Has it just become too easy to accept that the problem's far away rather than face up to the facts? The issue is closer to home. It's like micro to the macro. When we tell people on an individual level to deal with their inner work, the country has to do it as well. We have to do the inner work. We have to stop looking for excuses for our individual behaviour and recognise our own faults and do our own inner work. But we also have to do it on a country basis as well. Can't keep looking outside of ourselves when the issue is right on our doorstep. So we've kept looking afar when the issue is close to home, but that thought process hasn't worked, has it? It just hasn't. It still continues until the light is shone on the real problem. And it's time to point the finger in the direction of the source of a multitude of ills in this country at where it belongs, right at Langley and their Nazi paperclip people and their policies. Maybe it's time we build a wall around them. Where are we? Well, we've gone past the music break. I'll finish this intel and then we'll go into a break. Prince Charles. Figure of fun in the UK, apart from the flag wavers and happy clappers in London. Anyway, Mr. Bonnie Prince Charlie still thinks he has influence and still thinks people will listen to him. My message to him, Mr. Irrelevant, please pipe down with your climate change drivel and Paris agreements, as no one is buying it, your bullshittery anymore. They're just not. The 109 countries that were duped into signing that are now going to reverse it. All of them. So go and have a vacation with Mr. Al Gore and you can play with each other and discuss climate change, because nobody else is interested in it. The pipeline. This is the Dakota one. Now, last week, the UK, not Norway, not America, the UK, found out they were trying to use public funds out of the UK and Canada to fund that pipeline, and subsequently cancelled it. The terrorist attack in Canada this week is related to that particular decision. I can't go into any further details, it just is. Now, Mr. Trump, to much angst from myself and others, approved the Keystone and the DAPL pipeline with conditions, and the conditions were no public funds, B, no government funds, no state bonds, no municipal bonds, no city bonds, and no Indian money either. Now there was a bunch of reroutes required, so it was a minimum of a certain distance from the aquifer and the water supplies, and if they could achieve that, then the pipeline would go ahead. Otherwise it will get cancelled permanently. Now the situation as it stands currently is those building the pipeline have to come up with $12 billion themselves to build it. This, in my opinion, will not be achievable on their own, and given we don't need Canadian imports of oil, we talked about overflow problems already and previously in this show, we will likely see an end to that pipeline permanently, and any further attempts will be blocked no matter who is in charge, as I understand it. So we're not funding it, Britain's not funding it, Norway's not funding it, Indian money's not funding it. They have to come up with that 12 billion themselves. Methinks they're going to have a big problem. Right, we're going to go into a musical break now, and I hope you enjoyed that first hour. This song kind of explains some of it. Bye for now. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour. Well, first hour, summing up, things are not what they seem. Things are improving, that I can say. Mr. Trump has got certain people around him that will push him in a direction that will be beneficial more towards us than towards his particular faction. Should he step out of line, as I've been told, he will be replaced. We're not messing about anymore. Cavalry has arrived. Changes will be afoot. More and more people are being exposed. The story I didn't cover tonight was the arrests of the pedophilia group in California. That's not the only place those type of arrests and the volume is taking place currently, I might add. It'll reach a critical mass, and I have a feeling it'll race across the pond, and maybe Scotland Yard will release what they know that they've been frightened to because of how high it goes in that country. They've been sitting on it for 20 odd years. So bit by bit, some of the moves that have been made are to counteract, put up a barrier, a defence to cut off certain modes of operation that the cabal and the elites and banksters have all been doing against us. Some will look like it's not good, and if I find out things are not good, I will say it on this show. Like I did last week, I'll call it as it is. But if I see or is shown evidence of an alternative mode and why it's been done, I will also say that as well, if approved to do so. The news that I gave you in the last hour is nowhere near the full volume of what's going on at this point, because so much is ongoing and so sensitive. It's not prudent to out any of it. So that will carry on. Now what will, from our point of view, is we'll have to stay calm. I keep saying this. Stay centered, balanced. They can't lose you if you're in a heightened state of excitement, or not in a heightened state of excitement, or in a depressive mood because things are not moving quick enough, or you've had something that's bothered you in your private life. Learn to stay calm either end of the spectrum. They can't get at you then. It's the one thing they want at this point, is everyone in total chaos. This is why they're organising and paying for stupid marches. You know, I understand why some don't like Trump. I'm not overly fond of the man myself. But if he does what we all want, will that really matter? Whether I like him, you like him, or anybody else likes him? If Michelle Obama had been put in and she did everything that we wanted, cleaned the swamp, would your opinion change on her? So who's in place is kind of irrelevant. We all know that policy comes from the shadows. It always has done. What it appears at this point is the shadows are being removed, or the light is being shone upon them, so that the real power goes back to the President of America, not the United States, and we get the Republic back and the organic constitution that belongs here. Then there's no hidden shadow elements. I've said in a previous show, you could put at the second coming of Christ and put him in the White House. It won't make a blind bit of difference while you've got the shadow elements pulling the puppet strings. So whether Trump is good, bad or indifferent is, on the scheme of things, from the public's point of view, kind of irrelevant. It's he or she who has control of the shadow groups that counts. And as I understand it, we're winning that war. The cavalry has arrived, and we're going to see some fairly extraordinary events in the near future, as I understand it. And maybe we all get the swamp cleaning that we have been looking for, and then have an opportunity to rebuild this country. We really need to rebuild the people, because the people have lost their way in this country badly. We've seen some of the stupidity that's gone on in this country. You know, I can think of 100 reasons to march on the White House. Not only for the last administration, but what about the clown before? Like I said, Mr. Obama's legacy of this country is people have forgotten about idiot Bush. That's how bad he was. Suddenly people are thinking Obama is worse than Bush. Nope. Just appeared that way. It appeared that way because more got revealed. You know, I'm no lover of Obama either. He did help near the end, but it's help for the factions, which in about turn help the people as well. And Trump is doing some of that also. But it's a give and take sort of game that really doesn't involve we the people at the moment. You have this, you have that. we will get some benefit from it, no question of it. But eventually, as things unfold with the Rothschilds, where they're losing ground by the week, the influence, control and wealth eroding by the week, it doesn't take a big leap of faith to realise we're heading in a better direction. When that is, that's the old debate, isn't it? I'm not going to say 2 weeks or 2 months. It just is taking place. How quickly that takes place remains to be seen. But there is a global effort right around the world now to bring about proper change. We won't get everything we wanted, but sometimes we'll get what we need, as the song says. But Langley in particular is being exposed heavily and needs to be dealt with. We can't carry on blaming everybody else. The cabal and the media can. It doesn't mean to say we have to fall for their con game. Remember the Faction show, where Albert Pike, part of the elite, part of the cabal, part of the network, stated how the 3 world wars were going to take place, and the third one was between Christians and Muslims. Well, this is it. This is that time. This is why they're denigrating the Muslims, because they're setting the stage for the people to give them the go-ahead to go and have a war with the Muslims. Surely we're not that stupid in the alternative media to fall for that bullshittery anymore. I hope not. Right, enough of my rambling. We'll get into some questions. The other thing I wanted to mention is, I would say within, certainly by the end of this month, if not certainly by the end of March or sometime in March, ISIS will no longer exist. They're being routed big time, including some of the Langley elements. So that theatre of operation will shortly be no longer mentioned. Right, questions and answers. We've got quite a few, and quite varied ones tonight. I'll give you the best I can with them. Right, first one, can you give some intel or your opinion about the various councils who are arguing about giving us our memory back or not, or only the last life memory? How is it that they can make the decision? Isn't that parenting again, or has it to do with wisdom? A rather good question. Now, do you get the 6 loops and all the trauma that involves? Do you get 1 loop, 13,000 years, and the trauma that involved, particularly at the beginning of it, but now at the end? It's a lot of trauma to deal with devastation that was ongoing on this planet. Second, particularly at the beginning of the 2nd loop, the end of the 4th and the beginning of the 5th. That was the war with the Atlantans and the Murians and other hostile races coming in and firing lasers and all kinds of other exotic weaponry. Is that a trauma or memory you'd like to see or experience? my opinion. So that's the Draco are involved. They're the ones that were involved in the memory wipes mainly, although I suspect the Mantids are also involved, given they're the tech people. Draco are discussing between 1 and none. Some humans are thinking all memory. My personal opinion, for what it's worth, I would say none. And the reason being is the damage that's been done to the souls, living souls in here, has been enormous enough. I think we've had enough of trauma and pain, and I don't see the benefits of pulling that memory back. We chose to forget it. We took the pill. We went into the AI system and wiped the memory. Obviously, those who were present at the time thought it was too much and took the easy way out. And it's not for me to judge whether they were right or whether they were wrong. At the end of the day, unless you've walked in that person's shoes, you can't really judge how they were thinking or acting at that particular time. And the old saying there, but the grace of God go you or I. Now, the reason I would, given a choice, vote no memory is it then would have to run alongside some sort of a program where we learnt the whole history, and people then can access that history when they are ready to do so, rather than being thrashed back into the organic body with a whole heap of traumatic memory, of past life memory, that many may find too much to deal with. Some will say, well, I want it, but then it has to be a collective, and you have to realise the damage that's been done to the souls in here has been enormous, and I'm not too sure, in my own opinion, whether it be too much to throw in to an individual vessel all that traumatic memory. That's just, like I say, that's just my opinion. Everyone else can have their own. It's not me that's making the decisions, it's all of us. So yes, it's been discussed on a council level, but it's also on a soul level. And maybe it's something that all who listen to this show have to think about on an individual basis. Given what I've told you of the answer to this question, how would you vote? There is no right way, there is no wrong way. It's your personal choice. So whilst others may discuss on your behalf, rest assured it won't be their choice. We now have humans on the council for the first time in history, so we're not being overlooked for our opinion. Something to ponder. What would you do? Any chance you can ask your sources about whether or not this is just fear porn, or should this be a real concern for folks like me who live in California? China's moving to control California food supply, famine coming to the US part of the Calexit plot. That's on the Dave Hodges show. I don't put much credence to what he puts out. It appears to be fear porn week after week. There is elements of it, but not to that extreme, and it will not be allowed. Like I said, cavalry has arrived. Although I did my propensity for humour this week, another member of our group who lives in California was asking me why all the rains were coming in California. So I told him the Chinese have done it, and he said why. I said, well, they need plenty of rain so they can grow rice. Unfortunately he took that for real for a couple of lines until I told him I was joking, but that's my sixth sense of humour. So no, the rains are not coming for the Chinese rice. Will the Republic be restored this year, and if so, will Trump get the boot? Possibility and possibility at this point. You know, we filed the Sovereignty Act for the restoration of America as a sovereign nation, which then discounts UN involvement, IMF involvement and World Bank involvement. Also negates certain others from interfering with this sovereign nation. Then the Republic will be restored. It may be restored beforehand, but it takes a special vote, as I understand it. And we've also got to move the current government out of the US Inc. version into the American version. The platform to do that is still not provided, as I understand, but maybe the cavalry will sort that out. We've recently heard from what we think is to be two reputable disclosure type info people that the radiation leak from Fukushima remains to be a problem. Is this still your opinion, or is it not the case? As I understand it, it's not. I remember watching a video which was later taken down of a guy actually on the site. A Japanese guy was on the site with a Geiger counter, and there was hardly any background radiation. So if there's radiation, it's not coming from there, it's coming from other sources. Of course, we have certain plants off the west coast. Maybe you should look closer to that. Fukushima is a problem, but as I understood it, it was dealt with, or the main issue was dealt with in the first 2 or 3 days, which is why there was certain craft above. Right. It seems that ascension is about moving up the scale of consciousness. Is that an accurate assessment? Yes. Ascension comes from within. I keep threatening to do it, but I keep getting sidetracked with other things that I've got to do and other projects and different things. I will be covering some of this in that special show that I've been promising for a month now. I am aware of it, and maybe I can complete it, and we'll do another show next week outside of the Thursday show with that new information that will explain some of this. But yes, it comes from within. It's about your spirit advancing the scales, and like I said, I'll cover that more in that particular show. How long of a period have they been looping our time reality? 78,000 years. That's the answer to that question. 6 loops, 13,000 years. What you may have to consider, and this is only a theory of mine, the Mayan calendar never made sense to me of how a native people can come up with such a detailed calendar, and the messages that they have tracked it over many thousands of years. But you will need at least 3 to then be aware of it. You can't just say on day 1 I'm going to start documenting it and then turn it into a calendar after one cycle of 26,000 years. You've then got to see a second one and see it correlates to the first one before you can then implement a calendar into the third cycle. 3 times 26,000? Yep, 78,000 years. Something to think about. Is infinity and the related symbol of infinity a hidden in blind sight symbol of the looping of time? Yes. Also known as the Mobius. Of course, in the series The 100, when he said take the pill, whereby you forgot pain, you forgot trauma, and you had your memory wiped, which is exactly what took place on this planet. The symbol on the pill was the figure 8. It's not a coincidence. Recent show I'm watching is called The Blacklist. You want to find out how much heinous crime syndicate operations are ongoing, I suggest to watch that series. I've just watched one episode of the second series where it gives rather too much away, I would think, to do with the MK Ultra and the Manchurian candidates and how they do it and how long it's been going. It's more of full-on disclosure when you realise a lot of those stories and those crime syndicates are actually real, not always the same names. You realise the depth of the cleaning swamps that have to take place, not just here, it's globally. Right, Holly's bailing again. She can't last the pace. Oh well. Bye, Holly. She's going to kill me in a moment. Right, okay. Next question. Would you please elaborate on your comments on the recent OIM radio show concerning the indigenous peoples being infiltrated and the possible pitfalls of their demands for complete sovereignty? Yes, I will. Certain elements or certain tribes, particularly the Cherokee one, is infiltrated by Nazis, out-and-out Nazi groups, who are pushing for sovereignty so they then take over. In other words, it's like a coup. Because if they have been given all the land back, which they have, then what's to stop them taking us out by the rogue elements infiltrated in those groups? And that hasn't just come from one source, that's come from a number of sources. The Lakota and the Sioux tribes also are heavily infiltrated. They're the 3 that are doing most of the negotiations. They have to clean house also, because they're going to get duped again. So the native tribes have been given complete sovereignty over their own land, and they're free to do whatever they wish to do with the resources on said lands. So there'll be no interference with that, no backdoor payments or any of that. They will own and control their own lands. Now the issue is the government wants them to be a sub-sovereign for the Indian people's protection. If they declare their own sovereignty, it puts them outside of the government control. And most of us will go, yeah, that's a good idea. We're sick of government control. But the issue arises if the Rothschilds or some other group decide to take over their land in a hostile takeover. America can not intervene. Do you think the tribal people will be able to defend a hostile mercenary group taking over the resources and land? Certain dodgy foundation group peoples? I would say no. And that is why the government people have asked for them to come under a sub-sovereignty where we can then protect their interests, not the government's interests, their own interests. They don't seem to like that idea. One would suggest it's not the people that doesn't like that idea, it's the clowns that have infiltrated those groups. And they have to clean house. They will get shafted again. They'll get what they wanted and they'll get turned over and everything taken off them, and the American government or the military cannot intervene because they are a sovereign entity. They have to understand that. Like I said, I understand that they don't want government involvement given how badly successive governments have treated their people. But his was an olive branch, and not only are they taking it, but they're also snapping the hand off with it. You know, take a chance. You've got your land back, you've got your resources. What's the harm? So it is a concern, and they have to start listening, or cleaning house there. As those that are doing the negotiations are very, very far away from being the spiritual based people the Native Americans are known for. Sorry. I was listening to the Richie Allen show, and his guest, who is in the know, said that Trump was given $20 billion by the Rothschilds when he took office. Is this true? Nope. Next question. How do the ETs get through the Van Allen belts? Who says they're there? Government scientists? NASA scientists? Do we really believe what they tell us and their science? Make up your own mind. We all need a laugh. I said that earlier, so I'm going to ask this question. Are most first ladies transsexuals? No comment. Pass. The current one's pleasing on the eye for most men, I would think. Pity she's a KGB agent, but there you go. Thanks for the warning about the energies and their intensities on our emotions. how did you know? Big question. One I'm not prepared to answer at the moment. I just did. Where does this energy come from, and what is its ultimate intention or purpose? The energy comes from the galactic central sun, and it's part of a cycle, and its ultimate intention is to re-energize Mother Earth, the planetary being. Now it can also have an effect on those that are on the surface and below. So hiding in bunkers is not always beneficial. So that's the ultimate intention, is it's primarily for the planetary being. We will get benefits from it because the frequencies are more beneficial on the organic timeline than the inorganic. Those who have done their inner work will feel more benefits from it because there's less trauma. It's basically blocking up your whole system. So a more free flow of energy goes right through your existence. If you're stocked up with trauma and negativity, then there's no room for the better frequencies to come in. So that's why some are having great benefits and some are waiting for it to happen. It's already happened. It's been happening since 2002 and increasing, particularly over the last 18 months. You know, we first warned about it, that the increase in energies was back in May of 2015, when I gave a lot of warnings in that particular show of what was coming and why you had to do certain things, shadow work. People are now starting to see it. What is your suggestion about how to get the most benefit from such energy? Well, that's it. Do your inner work, do your shadow work, and forgive people. And most importantly, forgive yourself. Stay in balance, stay calm. Don't let too much get to you, no matter what is going to be thrown at you. Everything's going to be thrown at you on an energetic level this year. You're going to have your brain stretched, your mind stretched, everything stretched with the volume of information that's going to come forward, as well as the energies. So you're going to need to be in tune with yourself to be able to accommodate that a lot easier than most. Are the sun's black spots actually opening that satellites can see into and you will see electrical components? No. The black spots are part of, as I understand it, the portals. The sun is a giant portal. And of course, to answer the previous question, or the one before, no, the previous question, the frequencies that comes from the galactic central sun is filtered and harnessed through our own sun and all the other subsequent suns in this system. It's like a relay system. Of course, they initially, with their wave X, try to block that frequency and filter it to their own system. It's just the Saturn moon matrix. Thankfully that got cut off, which is why you've not heard any more bullshittery about wave X for about 12 months. You've forgotten about that, hadn't you? No one had mentioned it. Funny how things just disappear. A bit like saying no mention of that anymore, and there won't be either, because that's irrelevant also. That was finally dealt with in August of 2015. What is your opinion on quantum healing hypnosis technique for healing and past life regression, where practitioners like Dolores Cannon were able to communicate with a person's subconscious or higher self, and in some cases not only bring on past lives but also heal past life traumas? I'm not too sure that that is a valid practice. I can't say I'm 100% sure in that comment. I'm yet to see how that is possible. Everything is possible, but I suspect they're channeling AI or negative beings acting as the higher self. And this is why for many years now we've been stating that our belief is to stay away from channeling, either doing it or reading it, because a lot of it is false evidence, and it's part of the AI system that can replicate anything you want, make you hear anything you want. So you have to be very careful who you are trying to channel, because a lot of us are not educated enough on the subject to realise what level we're channeling at. If you're channeling from the lower astral, then you're going to get the vampiric entities. That's where they all reside. So the idea of somebody else being able to access someone else's higher self, when in reality many people have difficulty themselves accessing their own higher self, I find a bit far-fetched. That's just my opinion. I'm not denigrating anyone who's done it. I just haven't seen sufficient evidence to suggest that that is a valid cause. And healing past life traumas, again, no. In essence, that's memory block, is it not? Healing somebody else's past life traumas, that's exactly what the Draco did, along with the AI. They healed humanity's past life traumas and cut off the memory. So I'm not too sure that that is possible. And again, I'm unsure whether that's a valid exercise to be undertaken. Oh well, we're probably at the top of the hour. Yes, we are. Let's get this last question in before we have a music break. What was finally decided on as far as humanity packages for the people, and will we get any kind of compensation as far as debt relief? As I understand it, nothing as yet. As yet. When we get more, there is something that's going to be beneficial financially for the people, but it's not ready yet. So I'm not promising anything. I just have to say, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we'll find some other way of compensating the people, because that has to take place, in my opinion. We live in a money-dominated world. I wish we didn't, because it is the source of a lot of ills to do with humanity currently. Greed, envy, crime, the list goes on. But sadly, we all need it, and what we don't need at this point in time is a cashless society, because that's exactly what they want, so they can continue with the fun and games, and then you're on a computer system, and then if you, like I did in the first hour, criticise Langley or Obama or Mr. Trump, they'll press delete. With cash, there's always an alternative that they can't control. we're a long way from trusting any sort of government or system of allowing them to control whether we have cash or not. That is my warning. Right, this week the Chinese celebrate their new year, and it's the year of the rooster. So this is going out to the Chinese people. Hi all, and welcome back to the final portion of tonight's show. And only time, I wish it was. We're all sick of waiting time. I tell you what, I am fed up of waiting for the foundation. A little update on that. The funds have been delayed, much to my chagrin, because I gave up my job last month to start it for this month. It just left me in a bit of an awkward position, but I'm sure I will come through it. I always have. We're hoping, because of certain legalities which should be overcome. It's not a case of them not being overcome, it's a case of the timing of when it will be dealt with. And so subsequently it's been delayed. The funds are there, I've been promised that, but they can't be distributed yet due to certain legal challenges which will not prevail on their behalf, but will on ours. But unfortunately now that's delayed. Like I said, it's left me in a sticky position, but we'll fight on. So keep sending donations in. All your applications that have been sent in are all documented, and the minute we get the funds, then each and every one will be voted upon for validity, and if he gets the vote, then the funding will be delivered. So in the meantime, keep sending donations. Thanks to all who have already sent in donations, and we'll keep it ticking over, and if I get any more news I will tell you all on this show. Right, next question, and this is more of a statement than a question, and I agree with it in its entirety. If we are all one people of Earth, why do we need tribes? Well, that was the setup going back many thousands of years when there was less population, remember, and there was different humans seeded here. That's why we all look different. We all didn't come from Adam and Eve, as certain books like to let you know. And so there were different peoples, and different tribes is also part of the different races that were involved here. So also the American continent, North America, Central America and South America, was occupied by a great many peoples: black, African, Moors, Asians, giants, whites and reds. So the question is, why do the red tribes claim sole ownership of this land, if not to carry forward the divide and conquer cabal agenda? Plus, I thought that the spiritual aspect of the red tribe was stewardship, not ownership of what they are calling their Mother Earth, or are they claiming an ownership-slave relationship with Earth as their slave? This issue has been a concern of mine and a source of ongoing confusion for me. Good question. I've said this before. The day this planet and its peoples, and that includes the cabal, realizes that nobody owns anything, we all own everything, the day will be the day this planet moves forward as an advanced race. So the idea that the Native American people own America how far do you go back? There's been tall whites, tall greys, reptilians, the serpent race, just familiar with the Mayan, and not to mention the mantids. Why are they drawn all over the southwest in cave drawings? Bipedal ants. That's the mantids. So clearly they were here as well. Do they have a say on it? And this is where it gets rather muddy. The Native Americans were here, yes, before us Europeans became goose-stepping across from Europe and decided that to kick them off their land. But the Aztecs were there before the Red Tribe. There's evidence of that all over America. Did you give it back to the Aztecs? Where does it end? The reptilians and the raptors were here before us. Did they have a claim on it? You know, where does it end? Well, where it should end is when humanity stops playing the ownership game. Ownership then becomes the haves and the have-nots, like the questionnaire said. Divide and conquer. It's the oldest trick of the cabal. Every successive empire has done the same. Split each country up into little parcels. Of course, North America was one country. Now in essence it's 48. Now known as the States. It's parceling it up for divide and conquer. So whilst they should be compensated for their losses, and there is a huge fund available for the native people of all the funds and certain land that was stolen in the 1700s and the 1600s, there is a fund for those people. But I don't think they should own anything. I don't think any of us should own anything or any particular plot. We own all of it. So not just the Red Tribe, not just Rothschilds and Bushes and all the other clowns. Like I said, today this planet goes to caring and sharing, where we all own the land. No borders, no passports, can't go here, can't go there. That's their rules. Again, to keep the people separate, so keep them in smaller numbers, divide and conquer. All resources belong to the people of this planet. All of us. All you do is you compensate the ones who have mined it with the idea that they own it and then sell it to us is crass stupidity of the highest order that we've allowed and tolerated for far too long. And the ultimate goal to me is we achieve that goal. We all own the planet. None of us are immigrants. Again, that's a most ridiculous term I've ever heard. And we all own the resources. Once we achieve that, humanity will go from a type 0 childlike race, part unintelligent, to an intelligent, thriving race of type 1. And perhaps some of the Red Tribe, and I'm not just singling them out, because they're not alone. There's idiots in all races, colours, creeds, countries. But perhaps they really need to look at who is doing the bidding for them, because spiritual it ain't. Thomas, how do we engage or disengage Trump from what we are trying to accomplish? That is, how do we get him to play ball for all the people, or retire him for public life as the CEO of USA Inc.? Well, the most important thing is don't give it too much energy. Like I said earlier, if things get done, it's not because of Mr. Trump. If things don't get done, it's not because of Mr. Trump either. That's what people have to grasp and understand. Now, if things get done, Mr. Trump is going to be a hero, and kudos to him. But it's not because of Mr. Trump, it's because of the people that are directing things from behind the scenes. Finally, we the people have got a group who are pulling on our behalf. Every other year we haven't. Again, that's the type of change that's ongoing. We have a chance to get what we need. So don't give your energy away. That's another important aspect of this time, is where you put your energy. Are you going to allow people to drag you down to their level? Don't engage them. You can't wake people up now. It's too late. Way too late. You have to concentrate on yourself and like-minded people only. Disengage yourself. That's all we can do at this time. You know, most of us are not directly involved, but we are indirectly involved, and it's where you put your attention and your energy that counts. That's your vote. You can allow them to drag you down because they're doing X, Y and Z, or you can not allow them and try and wish and manifest a better future for us all. I said last year, the time of manifest has arrived. So if you're wasting time wondering whether Trump's the right answer or not, you're not doing things that could be more beneficial to you and the people around you, and subsequently the collective. This is why they throw us into chaos, where things are all confusing, and then they throw things in like, oh, Antarctica, another distraction. It's not new what's going on in Antarctica. What is new is the volume of agents promoting it. So everyone suddenly is distracted with Antarctica. This is how they play the game. Previously it was CERN and the RV, and Planet X is coming, Nibiru, etc., etc. All designed to distract you from what you need and what you need to do. And now is more important than ever. We are in the critical phase. It's not coming anymore. We're in it. Most of you can sense that. You can feel it. Things are being disclosed on an almost daily basis. I've filled 3 pages of news items. I could have filled another 3. That's just in the last week. I did say this would happen. This is the ping, ping, ping of the golf ball, and it's going to come at you from all angles. But you can't put too much focus on certain things. Focus on the self. It's not being selfish, like I said, because it's actually helping the ones around you. Seek like-minded people more at this time than any other time. Next question, do we pay the IRS this year? Yes, until further notice. Do you have to pay the IRS? No. You can ask your employer to get you the form to fill in to stop them taking the withholding tax. Now, I will have, when we get nearer the time and I actually start the foundation, when we do a show on it, I will have all the relevant facts. I don't have all the information. I know that is correct, that you're not obligated to give your employer withholding tax. Basically, a withholding tax is a savings account for the IRS. Do we really want them using us as a savings account? Because that's what they're doing. Then they might give you some back at the end of the year. Well, how about you keep all of the withholding tax, put some into the foundation because it's tax deductible, and then keep some in an interest bearing account, and then when they ask for the taxes at the end of the year, you hand it over. At the end of the day, isn't that the way forward? At least then your taxes are going where it should be going, is to the people via the foundation, rather than to the IRS, which is just a collection agency for the Federal Reserve, which is just a subsidiary of the City of London and the Crown. For those of you who are new to this show, 67% of income tax, which is voluntary, goes to the Crown of England. It's not an actual tax. It states in the IRS manual it is a tribute to the Crown. That's why they tell you it's voluntary, because it's not a tax. It's a tribute to the Crown. 23% goes to Federal Reserve shareholders, who are mainly European banksters and clowns, largely operating out of the City of London also. The other 10%, operating costs, and not 1 cent of your taxes goes to this country or its people. None. So you want to how to stop that? There's your answer. There's something everyone who's paying taxes can do. You may come into some resistance, but you ask them to show the proof in their manual where it states you have to pay tax on your income. It's not in the manual. So that's something you can do that can benefit us, we the people, by stop paying withholding tax to your employer. That's what they do with it. It just goes then into black budgets to do more damage to us. So in essence, we're paying for our own trauma. Why can't the good ETs come to our aid now? It's clear all the crap, and clear all the crap, then go, so we could get on with humanity and learning how to get on with each other. A bit of a loaded question, that. ETs have been coming to our aid for many years, at the end of every loop, to try, and certain ones have come in, certain people from other regions of this universe have come in to try and teach humanity how to escape. Now, what took place this particular route, because it was decided universe-wise that this particular construct that we were stuck in had to end. Now, a lot of it, there's been many battles. I'm not thinking or not detecting much of the battling still ongoing. Most of the battling has ended in 2014. There's still elements here and there, but it's rather small skirmishes rather than full-on war, because a lot of the meetings that took place were about talking about peace rather than war. You know, war's got them nowhere. I can, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's humanity or reptilians or mantids, greys. They've all been fighting wars for millions of years. Where's it got them? Nowhere. So the directive was, let's try something different. And certain more prevalent races took that on board. They were told to come here and clean up their mess on this planet, which has been taking place, which is why the Ark of Gabriel was removed, and other certain texts have been removed that if it went into the wrong hands of humanity, or we are unable to use that particular tech wisely, or it's a threat to the planet, then the directive was that tech would be removed permanently. Because we have many here who are particularly stupid, who seem to think that war is the way to go. It's Draco mentality. That's what the Draco are all about, militaristic. That's why humanity has a trait of violence via the reptilian cortex. Unbalances our brain and makes us a more violent race than we should be. But the idea that they're going to come down and fix is a complete no-no. What they have done is level the playing field, where they and some humans with abilities have managed to remove a lot of the negative tech that surrounded this planet and this solar system. So the interference is no longer there, largely. Saturn matrix, soul cubes. The AI is now not interfering the way it was. The parents are not interfering the way it was. The Draco is gone. There is a few rogue elements that will be dealt with. Nowhere near the levels 12, 18 months ago. So what we're left with here is a group of psychopathic humans acting like Draco. They followed the Draco for too long, they've become like them, and this is the problem. No compassion, no care. Let's just get what we want and bugger the consequences of it all. Slowly but surely that particular psychopathic group is being dwindled away. Why are companies like those listed on the SAS conference site doing research that seems far less advanced than the technology spoken of in Org Tellus's latest post, underground bases, DNA activation, the unveiling? Like everything else, it's the cover. That's the public view, because they've got to tell you what they're doing. The hidden view is what we really need to find out about. It's a bit like NASA. NASA goes to the moon, and NASA sends probes to various planets and asteroids, and that's all they do. No, that's the public view. What goes on behind the scenes is the real NASA. They are part of the SSP, small p, not capital P. Same group, secret Nazi breakaway group that Corey Goode belongs to. Whether he likes that or not, it is a fact. He did state it in one of his interviews that not all in that group are good. I would say all of them are not good, period. Nazi breakaway group are not interested in humanity. They never have been. You've seen some of the experimentation they were doing before and during the war, which was then passed on to the Americans via the Project Paperclip 1 and 2, and there's a possibility there was a third Paperclip project, as yet unconfirmed. So this is why there's these type of conferences. Some very scary people in them conferences. I would suggest that they're not part of the Living Soul group, and it frightens me even more that somebody rather important in the alternative media, alternative community, would attend such said conferences. But then he's been at cabal conferences before, hasn't he, Mr. Wilcock? Do you have any info as to why chemtrails have started up again in northern and mid-California? No, I don't. They've been gone for a couple of months and are back again. It may not necessarily be chemtrails. I'm guessing here. I'm just taking a stab at it. It may be to balance the system out there because it's gone from one way to the other. Not all chemtrails are bad, it depends what's in them. Is there a conspiracy going on between the Democratic Party and the Vatican trying to start World War III? The Vatican's incapable of starting World War III. Largely, the Jesuits were rendered obsolete. They couldn't obtain the alliances to keep going. They still carry a punch, but not as vicious as previous. A lot of the infighting that was covered in previous shows with the Vatican is faction wars between the secret society, the Jesuits, and the black nobility, which are the real operators of the Vatican. I would suggest that perhaps the Democratic Party has more alliances with the Jesuits than the Zionists. That may be the case. So it's more faction games. Would you care to rate Dr. Joseph Chiapelloni on the bullshittery scale? That's unfair of me to do that. I didn't listen to it, but I believe Mr. Chiapellotti, whatever his name is, appears to have a very dark side and involved in occultism, as I have been led to believe, and they are perhaps, don't take this as gospel, perhaps psyops personalities. Fear, doom, we're all gonna die. A bit like William Mount and Kent Dunn and a few others that spring up and then suddenly disappear. Tory Smith was another one. They are quite annoyed with his particular bullshittery, because he was basically making light or over using a very heinous subject of child abduction and the abuse of those children for sensationalism. some of the stories he came out with are just nonsensical and not believable either. Yes, it is a problem, but his sensationalising of it and over dramatising of it left a nasty taste in the mouth. And there's a question about Tory Smith, what happened to him? I have no idea. I said in previous shows, you'll find some in the alternative media that will just suddenly disappear. Maybe he's one of them. When will the public be told the truth about 9/11, Bush's, Clinton's, CIA, government drug trade? Well, I think we already have. Various shows have covered it, but I think what we're all wanting is for it to be on CNN or Fox or other clown operations that they've got. And I understand that. We all, I've pushed the foundation people and the people that support this group for a public event. We need a public event. But in essence, all of us know what it is. So the idea of chasing it is not something that you necessarily have to put energy into at this time. The ones who are dealing with it are also aware of the truth about 9/11 and Bush's and Clinton's, and when the swamp eventually gets clean, all that will come out. So, but that series, The Blacklist, covers the government drug trade or CIA. It also covers MK Ultra and a few other rather unpleasant operations of rogue elements around the planet. It's not just America. Gangs and syndicates and crime syndicates in every country doing the most heinous of things, all for money. Sad. There are some that consider we are part of an AI program. Isn't this just another illusion of control? Even if it's true, can't we as a group of multi-dimensional masters choose another reality? We are part of an AI, a holographic program, and they have had control. My understanding is the AI is now learning a different way of operating, and so is not interfering anywhere near the levels it should be. I happen to think it's not interfering at all. Others are suggesting it has some control, but not as negative. It's rapidly learning a different type of program where it's going to be beneficial to humanity. As you said, we are multi-dimensional beings. When all of us really know that on a vessel level, then the idea of needing, and we get out of this system altogether, the matrix, the idea of needing an AI program seems ludicrous to me, and I don't think we need it. There's always a chance with machines that it turns against you. There's always a chance there's a group who decide to use that machine against you. Let's take that opportunity and that element of chance away. Because everyone, as I believe, the living souls in here are all creator beings. If we can create anything we desire, why would we need a machine to tell us what to do? The two don't compute, pardon the pun. So yes, we signed up, humanity signed up for the AI program. Was it part duped? Partly, not all. And it's ending. as we go into the organic and out of the hologram, and it's increasing rapidly, then the need for AI and control will diminish. Someone who is synthetic has for the past year will hear entire religious and patriotic songs played out in their head. They also never remembered dreaming or cried at funerals. Can this person be taken control of and become threatening for no reason? They're a distraction to take you from away what you need to do or you need to be. That's all it is. A distraction. Don't give your energy to them. You know, often see people apologising for the behaviour of others. Why should you apologise for the behaviour of others? It wasn't you that did it. This is obviously a problem in the schools when their son or daughter has misbehaved in school and the parents are apologising. Why should you apologise for what that individual's done? You're not responsible for that individual. Nobody is. Yes, they're under your caring and stewardship, so to speak, but that doesn't mean to say that you are responsible for somebody else's behaviour. The same applies on the macro. Are we responsible for the behaviour of the clowns in Langley or the White House? No. But we're the ones, if we meet Muslims or Syrians, who are apologising to them. It's time for the clowns who did it to take personal responsibility, not project it onto others and make them feel guilty. Again, this is something that's going to be important going forward. Personal responsibility is your sole control. If everyone has personal responsibility, we don't need governments, we don't need police. Why would we need police if everyone's personally responsible? You wouldn't. Take care of what you control, which is yourself. Never be apologetic for the behaviour of others. I've seen it on the page this week. No, that individual is responsible for their own behaviour, and don't you feel guilty because you're their friend or you're their son or you're the parents. No. So don't put your energy to people behaving badly or acting strangely. They can't be helped. Are we moving from one hologram into another, or from one reality into another? Or we're returning to its natural state, which is organic, from inorganic. And we're not going into another hologram. Is Jesus Christ fictitious to keep humanity from spiritual growth? As I understand it, that particular person or office did exist. The name I have an issue with, because it can't possibly be pronounced or spelt that way, given the letter J didn't come into the language until the 14th century. You know, if Jesus was that important, why have they changed his name? But there was a being that came in and tried to help humanity. There was one at the beginning and end of every loop, or a group, who tried to teach humanity a different way of being. Don't give your power away. the being known as Jesus, stated himself, you don't have to go to church. That's giving your power away. But the church has almost become like a guilt complex. You walk into a church and you are free of all your sins. You don't need the church to validate whether you've been a sinner or not. You are your own judge. Don't let anybody else judge you. That's standing in your own sovereignty. You don't need no priest to sit in a box and forgive me, Father, for I have sinned this week. Because the priest on the other side of the box has sinned many, many times worse than what we ever have. How are they in any position to turn round and tell us whether we've been good or bad when they've been involved in child trafficking, child sex abuse, fraud, corruption of the highest order? Not to mention the lies that's been told of our history and who and what we are. The churches, no matter what religion, are the biggest sinners on this planet because of the lies they've told. They've stifled spiritual growth. Spiritual is personal, not collective. Religion, let's all go in the one group. No. It's individual. And your individual sphere then interacts with other spiritual spheres. Then you have a movement. Where are we now? What are the 13 earth chakras as you know them? What effects would they have on a human to visit, spend time? It depends on which ones you go to. As I understand it, there's been a clearing. I've attended at least 2 of them and did some energy work there. And that was a couple of years back now. But the 13th chakra is in Moscow. And this goes back to the things I've been mentioning. That was a great puzzle for me for many years of why are they hiding this 12 plus 1? Why does this keep coming up, 12 plus 1 all the time? Now, this is another example. There's 12 earth chakras. Once the 12 chakras are cleared on the earth, the 13th opens. That may be the event. What happens, I have no idea. Maybe the frequencies will just ring out like a bell. I don't know. But that's my understanding of the 13 earth chakras. Once all 12 are clear, the 13th in Moscow opens. It's like the crystal skulls, 12 plus 1 again. Once they're all together, the last one sings or tells you the history. Some of those in possession of the tribal people are bogus crystal skulls. Otherwise we would have heard the 13th open and tell you the whole history. Where are we for time? Out of it. Right. That 3 hours went quick. Where are we next? Right. The next show we will have round 2, or attempt to, with Lily Earthling on Sunday at 7 PM EST. So join us for that. That should be a rather interesting show. Lily's got a lot of new material, and we'll be discussing topics rather than a question and answer. But if you want to put questions in, feel free to do so on the pin post when it's up, which will probably be Saturday, given I have to post the archive of this show for tonight and tomorrow, so I may be able to put it up to Friday night. But the show with Lily, providing we don't get any interference again, will go ahead this Sunday at 7. Right, where are we next? Well, with this, it's if you lead life in love and care, you will prevail. If you lead life in fear and anger, you will fail. Feel free for you to be the person you wish to be, not the person who conforms to what others want them to be. You are a multi-dimensional being operating simultaneously on many levels. You are not here to conform. You are not here to be stifled. You are not here to be enslaved, and you are not here to be abused or to compete with your friends, family or neighbours. You are here to be the best you can be, and do so as the crown of creation. Now go out with the confidence of who and what you are, and excel in yourself, and in doing so inspire others. Well, that has been another show of The Truth, Honour and Integrity. My name's Thomas Williams, and if everyone did what this song says, we would have a better world overnight. Bye for now.